Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank all of you for coming out and braving the slick roads. Like Linda said, hardy Alaskans. Little rain's not going to stop us. And also welcome to those of you who didn't brave the icy roads and are home watching on YouTube. We welcome you as well. And I will mention, because you who are watching on YouTube don't get to hear the wonderful process that we have that we call a collection, when we get to step into that time of circulation. And so for those of you that are home that are watching this, you can go to our website and make a donation there. So welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for watching to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. When I was a little boy, I think about 4 or 5, my cousin used to thrill at teasing me. And his favorite way to tease me was to scare me. He was 3 years older than me, and he loved to scare me. And he could scare me telling stories. And so he used to tell me stories and scare me. And he told me once a story about a lonely cowboy out riding the range and got caught in a sudden thunderstorm. And if you've ever, been along the front range of the Rockies, you know how, thunderstorms can come rolling over the mountains, and boy, they hit you really fast. And he got caught in this sudden thunderstorm, and he sought shelter. He knew enough not to go down into the little gullies or valleys because there could be a flash flood, so he knew not to do that. But he looked around and he sought out a place that he could get refuge. And he happened to look up and he saw a cave kind of up on a hillside. And he thought, well, that's high enough. That might be okay. So he rode his horse up there, and it was perfect. It had an area for him. He could kind of have his horse, and it'd be outside of the cave, but it was still sheltered. And deeper inside the cave, it was really nice. It was cozy and warm in there, and it was just almost perfect. And so he was able to go in, and then he built a nice little fire, and he warmed up, and wow, he was so fortunate. He was able to cook himself a little meal, and he's going to roll out his bunk roll for the night. What he didn't know is this cave was infested with rats. And these rats were hungry. And so he ate, and he rolled out his bunk roll, and he went to sleep. And as the embers of his fire died down, the fire went down, those beady little red eyes from the back of the cave came out, and they surrounded him. And as he laid there peacefully sleeping, they attacked with these razor-sharp teeth. And they were so hungry, they ate everything. They ate all of the muscle, all of the organs, all of everything, all of the bone. The only thing that was ever left of this cowboy, the only way they ever found him, was his belt buckle. For almost 70 years, I have been afraid of 2 things: rats and caves. The title of my talk today is Fear and Punishment. So I have 2 points today. Only 2 talking points today. Keep on your toes. I'm going to talk about punishment, and then I'm going to talk about fear. So we'll start off with punishment. Ernest Holmes wrote, "There is no sin but a mistake, and no punishment but an inevitable consequence. There is an immutable law of cause and effect running through everything. We are not punished for our sins, but by them. Sin is its own punishment, and righteousness is its own reward." So where did we come up with this idea of punishment and the origins of being punished by an angry or a vengeful or a punishing God? Well, you don't have to look too far to come up for that. We can go to the Hebrew Scriptures, and just in the very beginning of the Hebrew Scriptures. And these are the basis, of the Abrahamic tradition. This is over 400 million of the 700 million people on this planet fall into the Abrahamic tradition. So most of the people on this planet follow these things. And of course, the first thing we run across is Adam and Eve. And of course, they were punished for their sin of eating from the tree of knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And we had good and evil last week, so you know all about that good and evil part. And so their punishment, first of all, was the serpent who tempted Eve. The serpent was made to slither around on his belly for all of his life, for all of eternity. And Eve, because she was the first one to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, Eve was condemned to painful childbirth for all of eternity. And then both Adam and Eve were punished by being banished from the Garden of Eden forever. Could never go back to the Garden of Eden. So they had this really bad punishment. But things just keep getting worse. Now, their children, once they got out, they had two boys, Cain and Abel. Well, Cain killed Abel. So his punishment, he was even banned from being banned. He got banned even further. But he let him live. And so he had a tribe that followed him, and they weren't very good. They were sort of bad people, and they weren't following their God at the time. And they were sinful, so God decided he was going to clean up the whole mess, and he sent a flood. And the only guy there was Noah. So he sent this giant flood to punish everybody, and he drowned them all. Now that's serious punishment. And this is just in the first few chapters of the Hebrew Scriptures. Then we have the Tower of Babel. We have some of the people that after that, of Noah's survivors, and they decided they were going to build this big old thing as an honor to God, but it got to be so cool and got to be so big, and they kept building it bigger and bigger and bigger, that they quit honoring God with it. They were honoring themselves. This was their pride behind it. And so God was fed up with them, so he really cursed them, and he wouldn't let them understand each other. They all spoke different languages. So severe punishment. So here it is, over 2,000 years, way over 2,000 years, 3,000 years later, I walk across Spain and I'm trying to come up with some Spanish because they built the Tower of Babel way back then. So there is this punishment, and this is how we came up with this idea of a punishing God. We turn once again to Ernest Holmes. This is our own punishment through the law of cause and effect. We do not enter in because of our doubts and fears. It is not a punishment imposed upon us by the Spirit of God, but an automatic result of failing constructively to use the law of God. And what exactly do we mean by this? I submit that all of these examples, these things that we take out of the Hebrew Scriptures, aren't taken literally for the way they are. But if we go back and look at those, Adam and Eve, they weren't punished for their sins, what they did. It was a natural consequence. They ate of a tree that wasn't good for them. They ate of a tree that was going to make them sick. And their punishment was they had to leave. They couldn't eat there anymore. Same thing with, we go with Cain murders Abel. Murder is a pretty serious thing. So Cain commits a murder, and he is banished. He has to leave. No different than today. What we do, if someone in our society commits a murder, they are banished. They are put away. We put them in a prison. Noah and the flood. We had a lot of people that were self-centered, that were only thinking about themselves. They were only thinking about the short term and only for their own personal good. And so they suffered the immediate consequences of it by other people not liking them and basically casting them out. In the same kind of thing that we had with the Tower of Babel. We had people that were so wrapped up in their own ego, wrapped up in their own sense of what they thought was right, wrapped up not caring for other people, not caring for what is good for humanity, but only caring about themselves. And so they got to suffer the immediate consequences of that, which is that nobody liked them. Okay, our point number 2, fear. Now, I'm not talking about a healthy caution or wariness or common sense. And I'll go back to that tourist in the bear pool out at Katmai. This guy walked into the pool at the bottom of the falls where these all 1,000-pound plus behemoth bears are feeding on salmon, and he's going to take a selfie. Now, that guy needs a healthy dose of fear. He somehow made it out. He didn't join the Darwin thing and remove himself from the gene pool, but he could use a little bit of fear. That's not the kind of fear I'm talking about. We spend much effort avoiding what we do not like, and much effort seeking to experience more of what we do like, such as fulfillment, happiness, and well-being. And then we're afraid that we will experience more of what we don't like, and fear that we will not experience enough of what we do like. Can be afraid of the hurt of having our loved dog die, that we don't get another dog, and we deny ourselves that because of the fear of what that pain will be, the fear of what that will be. Ann and I had been married a very short time. We were newlyweds. I think we'd been married about 3 months. I had been sent to Lander, Wyoming for student teaching, to do my student teaching. And we had a cute little apartment there. It was in the basement of another teacher's house. And it was only a couple blocks from school, so I could walk to school, and then I could walk home at lunch. And every day I'd come home at the same time, and Ann would have lunch ready for me. And I came in one day, and there's no Ann. All the stuff was all laid out for lunch and everything, but no Ann. She was gone. And I looked around, I called, Ann, no answer. And then I heard this noise. I heard this tickety tick, tick, tick kind of a noise. What the hell is that? We had linoleum floors all in this basement. Tickety tick, tick across there. And I looked in to the bedroom, and oh my God, what came across that floor but a damn rat, and that thing was like this big, and that rat came right across the floor, and it came right across the bedroom and headed right in toward me to the kitchen. And I watched that thing, and it got closer and closer, and I backed up. Holy shit, I got up, and this rat goes up to the leg of the chair, and it stands up and it's clawing its way up this chair. Well, the stove was just over, and I leaned over, and she had a frying pan out on the stove, and I got that frying pan, and I got ready, and I was going to let that rat have it with this frying pan. And just as I got ready to do it, it dropped down, and then it went back into the bedroom. Well, I was sitting there with that frying pan in my hand, deciding what to do next, and I hear, Dawn. I said, yes. She said, did you see it? See it? Helen's got me on a chair. And she said, well, I went to the store. Ann had gone down to the hardware store and got this industrial size decon. And it was decon for rats. I mean, it wasn't little mouse pellets. This thing was rat decon. So we got out the rat decon, and we put it in one, we put it in another room, we put it in all over our little apartment. And they had this little slide out tray. Boy, I was glad to get back to school that afternoon. Poor Ann had to stay there. Well, I got home from school, and well, let's check and see how things are. And we looked around. Oh boy, that old rat had eaten almost all of that rat decon. There was hardly any of it left. And we thought, well, maybe we're in good shape. That ought to be enough to put this thing down. So we were sitting there, and we heard kind of, and then a knock at the door. And we came, and it was the teenage son of the people that owned the house. And he says, hey, have you guys seen Mr. Scruggs? We said, oh, who's Mr. Scruggs? He says, oh, it's my mom's pet golden gopher. No, I haven't seen Mr. Scruggs. No. I said, oh boy, what are we going to do now? So, I don't know, a few days went by. Hey, Mr. Scruggs ever turn up? Oh, yeah, Mr. Scruggs came back. Oh, how's Mr. Scruggs doing? Well, he was kind of lethargic at first, but he's doing fine now. I'm going, whew. How could that rat have eaten all that? But my point here is, it was a totally unfounded fear. Mr. Scruggs was not going to come across that floor and eat every bit of me except my belt buckle. But I'll tell you, that's what I was thinking. There was no way out that Mr. Scruggs had me. So how do we go about moving past fear? How do we get past these fears? Well, I submit there's several different ways, but one of the best that I can think of is find a friend that you can talk to. And a good source for that would be a practitioner. Because you can find a practitioner, they will be calm, grounded, non-judgmental, and confidential. You can talk to your friends and you can really get it all out. You can see the origin of your fears, which is the second point, which is face your fears. Where did this fear come from? And it is a little later, but it's about right, the 11th day of the 11th month, the 11th hour, and we're about the 11th hour plus about 22 minutes instead of 11, but was the day that the armistice was declared at the end of World War I. Those were men who faced their fears. This wasn't easy. This wasn't just going out in the rain. They were in the rain. They were in foxholes, not for a few hours. They were in foxholes overnight for days and weeks defending our country. These are men who faced their fears. And I think that it's really important on days like today to honor not only the veterans of World War I, but World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and every war since. The men and women who have given so much so that we can be here today. I also want to mention those that are faced with the fires in California now. I opened my email yesterday and my heart was just broken. We have a sister center in Paradise, California. They've been there for 65 years. Beautiful, beautiful center set off in the tall pines. Just beautiful. It's all paid for. They've had it done. They've been there a long time. Nothing left. Burned to the ground. And I read through minister after minister in our movement. You know, we're really strong in Northern California. We're strong in Southern California too, but we've got a lot of centers in Northern California, and so many of them. The congregations have lost so much. Several centers have been lost, homes. I'm not aware of any people that have died yet. But these are fears that people have faced, will continue to face. And because we do absolutely know and believe that each and every one of us are expressions of the Most High, we know that we can survive this, that we will come out the other side. We will be stronger. But our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers certainly go to all of those who are facing the fires. And while we're doing it, we might as well include all of those from the horrible shootings earlier this week. This is a difficult time for us to live. There is so much fear in this world. And we can face it. We can get through it when we do face it and we recognize it. Another good way to deal with the fear in our lives is, of course, spiritual mind treatment or prayer. You know, the second step in affirmative prayer is unification. And it's just a simple concept. It's like so much that we have in this movement. It's simple. It doesn't make it easy, but it is simple. And the very concept that each and every one of us are expressions of God. Each and every one of us are children of the Most High. We carry the very DNA of the divine within us all the time. And has God ever been afraid? Has that divine creative force ever backed down? No. Living in Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes wrote, "In the act of prayer and meditation, we commune with the invisible spirit. We draw its strength, its peace, its serenity into our own souls. And a result of this, we become strong and self-reliant, because we have built up a confidence in life, a faith in conviction that wards off all fear." When we realize and embrace that we are one with that infinite power, we have no reason for fear. Yes, we need caution. We don't want to stand in the pool with the bears. But we don't need to fear life itself. We don't need to fear being hurt by losing another dog. The fourth way we can deal with fear is by gratitude. It's impossible to stay in a place of fear when we are in gratitude for that which we have. My concluding story today is a story of a lady submitted by Stephanie Thompson. Her daughter Micah was a budding high school soccer player, and in order to get a little better and whatnot, they had hired a private coach. And they were so fortunate they got this coach for $40 an hour, and her daughter would go once a week. And this was like half the rate of what soccer coaches were charging, so they were real happy with that. But what was more important is the way that this guy coached, Mr. Thomas. And the way Coach Thomas taught this wasn't just turn on the clock when the session started and the bell goes off when you're done and you're out of here. No. He taught with a passion. He taught with a reverence for the game. There was a conviction about what he did and how he worked and what he did. They felt so fortunate to have such a wonderful coach. And Mom would arrive and it was indoor soccer, and she'd drop her daughter off, and then she'd go sit in the stands and watch on the other side of the plexiglass wall. And one particular day, her daughter finished the session and came back out, and she had tears in her eyes. And she said, "Micah, what's wrong?" And she said, "Well, Coach wouldn't take the money this week." She said, "What do you mean?" He said he didn't earn it. And so Mom got the $40, and she went around through the door to the plexiglass and went in, and the coach was picking up the soccer ball. She says, "Here's your money." He says, "No." She says, "I didn't earn it." "What do you mean you didn't earn it? You put in the time, the training, you did all the stuff. You deserve it. You take this." And he said, "No." He said, "If my players don't give 100%, I didn't earn it. And I'm not going to accept it." With that, he packed up his soccer balls and he was gone. So Mom and Micah got back in the car, and then we're driving home, and Micah started to cry. And she says, Mom, I feel like I cheated Coach. Mom says, well, it's not your, Coach's fault, if you didn't give 100%. But she said, yes, it is. It's my fault. And in that moment, Stephanie realized what this lesson is. And that is, if we don't give 100%, we not only hurt ourselves, but we hurt everyone else. And so my takeaway for you today is that if you're letting fear hold you back, if you're letting fear keeping you from giving 100%, then you're not only punishing yourself, you're punishing others. Because you have a gift. You have a gift given to you by God, by that divine creative force of the universe. And when you don't give 100%, you're restricting that flow. So my message today is step in. Move past your fear. Give 100%. And so with this idea in our hearts, I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in holding the congregation in love and light. And we just simply know that beyond the fear, there is a poise, there is a confidence. And it is that very poise, there is that confidence that allows us to accomplish wonderful, meaningful things. We can do things for our fellow man. We can be of service. And I know that we go through life. We face challenges. All kinds of challenges. Health challenges. Money challenges. Relationship challenges. But these are all temporary things. These are things that are roadblocks on our way to that poise and confidence that is a life. We just simply know that in spite of the fact that we may have health challenges, that there is perfection within each of us. Even though we may be facing lack and limitation, we live in a universe that is so blessed, we can hardly accept it all. And we know that more than anything else, we are beings of love. We can see past misbehaviors. We can see past eating from a wrong tree, even murder. Even egotism. We can see truth, that each and every one of us are beloved children of God. And it is that beloved child of God that I embrace here and now in this moment. And so we just give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God that is within each and every one of us. And now I release these words to a working of law that always responds, yes. We give thanks, we let it go, we let it be, and so it is.